Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Kate Schlarf. I'm the VP of Growth Marketing here at Moovila. I help set up these webinars, so if you're ever interested in new topics or have ideas, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or through the email that's on the screen, kate@moovila.com. Today we are going to be covering project data contamination and how it can be causing problems in your business. As always, if you haven't attended one of our webinars before, we will be sharing the recording after. It'll likely come by Tuesday at the latest. If you do not receive it in your inbox, sometimes there's issues because it's got video file links and such. You can contact me directly at Kate@Moovila, or easy to remember, marketing@Moovila, you can get to me as well. So that's where it'll come through. It'll come through on that Kate email, so just make sure you have it available to send you if you are looking to get the recording and share it with your teammates. And with that, we're actually going to be covering the content we shared today, and then you'll see another person on the screen, Louis Bagdonas. He is our senior program manager. So we got some feedback from our last webinar that people really wanted to also be able to see the software. So as promised, we're going to focus on the content for the first half, and then if you're interested, you can hang out with us and stay on to watch an MSP specific demo with Louis. And with that, I'll turn it over to our founder and CEO, Mike Psenka, who's going to cover project data contamination.
Thanks so much, Kate, and good morning, everybody, and I guess good evening, depending on what part of the world you're watching from. As Kate had mentioned and introduced herself, VP of Growth Marketing, and Louis Bagdonas will also be joining to cover. He's a senior program manager and specializes in the MSP space. And we're happy today to come to talk to you about sort of a challenging problem that exists inside of the MSP universe and how it affects your business. And it is this idea of project data contaminating the information and the business intelligence that you depend on to run your business. So our agenda for today is we're going to talk about this project contamination problem, and then we'll talk about the solution, APMM, Autonomous Project Monitoring and Management, and how that can help solve this problem for your business and move forward. And then we'll have a question and answer section. And then finally, as Kate had mentioned, we'll do some technology demonstrations as well. So let's jump right into the meat of the problem here. And it comes down to something that we call the MSP Business Intelligence Pipeline. So at the first layer of that pipeline, we have the managing the work layer, right? This is where you're capturing and tracking. So we've got ticketing data, we've got project data. We also have CRM data, right? The opportunities that you have coming into your business. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But this is where that transactional data occurs. And within the MSP space, the ticketing data is actually pretty mature. That atomic level ticketing data is very good. But one of the things that I think we all understand is that the project data can kind of get sideways quickly. And there are a lot of reasons that occurs, and we'll cover that. And as I said, we'll cover how you can resolve it. So up from that manage the work layer is sort of managing the business layer, right? This is where you're doing communication, you're doing scheduling, you're scoping, payroll invoicing. That business management layer is the next level up from that. And then finally, you've got where you're managing growth of the business. This is where you're tracking your profitability. You're looking at your resource requirements, and you're also looking at utilization and efficiency within there as well. So when we think about this idea of contaminated project data, unfortunately, it doesn't remain isolated within your organization. That contaminated project data starts to percolate up through these layers. It starts to damage your communication, the communication internally and externally to customers if you have bad dates or bad resourcing around those projects. So that can have a big effect. And then finally, it goes up further into your profitability calculations, your future resource requirements, your utilization and efficiency numbers. So that project data really does end up mucking up the works about how you look at your business to effectively grow and manage it. And there's another factor that underlies this as well, which is that relationship between the opportunities, the inflow of opportunities for new customers and new projects, right? And every new customer is a project. It's that handshake that you have with that business to demonstrate your ability to communicate, manage expectations, and track progress. So when you have bad project data, that can also be a significant issue. So why does project data get contaminated? Well, there are two big reasons that this occurs. One, you can do nothing about, which is probability. And this is sort of one of the really largely misunderstood things, and no one should feel bad because everyone misunderstands this. Humans inherently suck at probability. We're great at basic math, but probability, we frequently get our intuitions lead us astray. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But the other thing is that we're manually tracking all this data. We have a lack of automation around really a huge volume of data that is very, very dynamic. And so trying to manually track that data is a fool's errand, and it eventually leads to this project data being bad and contaminated. So let's talk about the probability problem first. And the probability problem is, once again, that our intuition about whether or not we're going to be on track or feel good about it is generally wrong, right? And so to emphasize or underscore that, we can think about a project and that we think about the number of tasks in a critical path. The critical path is that path of dependent projects, the minimum amount of time it's going to take to get a project done, right? So if we think about analyzing the probability of on-time delivery of a project, we have our tasks on the critical path across the top. On the y-axis, we have the average on-time probability of our team, right? What's the probability in general that everybody gets their work done on time? Is that 70%, 90%? And in many cases, when we're working in projects with customers and their dependency, very rarely are they 90, 95% reliable. But for the sake of this discussion, we're going to say that we have a project that has 50 tasks in the critical path, and everybody gets their work done on time. 9 out of 10 times, they get their work done on time, right? So we feel pretty good that this project will be done on time. Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. There's a 0.5% chance that project would be done on time without having to crash that project, right? So our intuition about this just is generally wrong. Our comfort level is a false sense of comfort, and this is why these projects so frequently go sideways and we're perplexed. So that probability is going to cause that to happen. So what do you do? If you can't do anything about probability, what do you do? Well, you want to buy yourself time. And you want to be as accurate as you possibly can so you can remediate those problems, address timelines, message to customers, reallocate resources, so you can get that project back on track. Because once again, we're not saying there's a 0.5% chance it's going to be on time. We're saying there's a 0.5% chance that project's going to be on time without crashing it or making some sort of change. And once again, if we look at a large portfolio or even a moderate portfolio of work, there are tens of thousands of elements that change that can affect accuracy of schedules, delivery dates, and utilizations. No project is an island, especially in the MSP universe, because you share resources in many cases. Those engineers are working on projects and are also probably working on ticket data as well. So you have this issue where you've got shared resources or inter-project dependencies that can compound this issue. And really, all this is to say, it underscores the point that it's not possible for any one human or any team of humans to manage all of that detail and get it right, right? You have to look at this in an autonomous function. So there's something called APMM, Autonomous Project Monitoring and Management. And it's an AI-driven automated process that has 4 main components. But its purpose is to solve, help remediate, improve accuracy, efficiency of your organization around this project and structured work. The first component is this idea of autonomous diagnostics, finding the problems in the projects automatically, monitoring those things 24/7. The second is remediation and recasting, right? When those issues and errors are found, correcting those errors, recasting that project and those timelines so now you can trust your dates, you can trust your forecasts and your capacity. It's about monitoring and communication so everybody is informed and you have transparency. And especially with customers, this is a critical component to maintaining customer satisfaction. And then finally, it's about integrations. Your project work is not an island. It doesn't live on its own. It has to be effectively integrated with your larger systems and your larger data framework so that can automatically communicate that data back and forth. So let's take a minute and dive into each one of these areas a little bit. So if we look at diagnostics, once again, we talked about this is the ability to identify the mistakes and risks in the plan that damage on-time delivery. And some of those things are like structural flaws, where there are invalid dates, illogical status, cyclic relationships, best practices around dependencies, fragmentations, and bottlenecks, any delays that are occurring, whether that's a critical path delay, which is obviously a lot more important than something that is off that mainstream. And in the example here, we say critical path, it's that top string of dependent tasks that come across. And then finally, we talk about resource and capacity. Hey, as this project stands today, do the engineers assigned to those tasks on those days, are they overtasked? Are they overburdened? Are they even in town? Right? So these are the things that happen once again, as we talked about previously in that probability slide, you're going to have problems. It's inevitable you're going to have problems. These projects timelines are going to shift from where you started them. They've got to be updated. And once again, it would be enormously resource intensive to continually try to manually scan calendar schedules, processes for all your engineers and all your projects. It's just an impossible task. The next part of this is remediation and recasting, right? And that's about the ordered repair of the mistakes, risk mitigation, and plan updating. And this is where sort of the AI component comes in as well, which is this supervised remediation in the correct order. This remediation is not occurring without supervision, right? So the PMs, program managers, or even what we talk about, citizen project managers, which could be engineers, they're automatically guided through that best practice and that remediation so they can get that project plan accurate, that schedule accurate, and that work accurate. And then it is about automatic recasting and communication. So you're not actually having to go into every ticket or every project and task and update those things manually, that can automatically get updated now that you're confident that you have a much more accurate schedule. And this can save enormous amounts of time and is saving enormous amounts of time for organizations today. Talked a little about monitoring communication. So APMM does need to be on 24/7, right? You've got to have that 24/7 portfolio analysis and diagnostics. So somebody, and I would say somebody, it is the AI component, observing that portfolio to identify where risks, delays, capacity problems have occurred, where those issues occur and arise across your portfolio, so you can be alerted and dive in. And there's another component of this called objective risk indexing, which is the RPAC score in our case, in the case of Moovila's technology. And the best way to think of it is it's like a credit score for that project. So when you see those numbers decline, you know a couple of things. One, it could be that we've got a critical path delay in that project, or it could mean that you've got a resource problem on that project, right? So that was monitored in the background, observing people's schedules, observing people's projects, their tickets, and their tasks. And it's letting you know, hey, we have a problem. We have to dig into this problem, because most people don't have time to, once again, go across their entire portfolio every day, dig in and try to analyze every task and every schedule to see that they're on time. This is where automation really becomes a lifesaver. And then finally, it's about communication. It's about making sure the engineers, the project managers, the customers, that everyone is aware of the changes and the issues that are occurring. And then finally, we talk about integrations, right? So this is about communicating with relevant third-party systems bidirectionally to inform capacity forecast, tracking, growth, status on that information. So you're not doing double entry in that, right? And so there are things like MSP platforms and the PSA platforms that a lot of organizations use, where that bidirectionality is critical to keep that informed. Also the CRM solutions. So wherever you're tracking your opportunities, it's also critically important to manage that as well. And once again, we talk about that because those opportunities drive projects. Excuse me, I got to sneeze. Oh, it went away. So those projects actually will drive resource and future capacity requirements, right? So one of the nice things about an APMM solution is its integration with those CRM solutions. As sales is updating the opportunities, and as you see those opportunities occur daily, the dates change, the forecast dates change, you can virtualize that work into your system. So as you're looking forward to forecast resource requirements, you get a much better understanding of what your future needs are as an organization, and kind of combining that with your current work. So really important integration to occur. And then finally, we're talking about calendar integration, right? We want to know where everybody's, they're tracking personal time, time off in that process. As those portfolios get updated, as those projects get updated, APMM solutions need to be smart enough to accommodate the schedules, the times, and the baseline capacity of that individual, not using swag efforts for everybody, right? Because the devil is in the details. Ultimately, it is this automation around that detail that drastically increases the accuracy and efficiency of the project work that you're tracking. So one of our customers said, hey, APMM is like RMM for projects. And I think that's really a great analogy, right? The industry is really familiar with what RMM is and the benefits of it, but APMM serves a lot of those similar functions, right? It's about monitoring 24/7, so you don't have to think about it, that you can trust that there's safety. It's about identifying those problems early before they cause damage to your business and to your customer relationships. It's about reducing the cost to manage, increasing that span of control. It's about keeping your customers running smoothly, giving their uptime, keeping them uptime. It's about maximizing the efficiency of your engineers. And finally, it's about giving you a competitive edge over the competitors that don't use it, right? Much better if you're using RMM than your competitors who aren't. You're going to be more price effective, cost effective. You're going to get better service. You're going to find those issues earlier. It really is the same thing with your structured work and your projects as well. APMM, Autonomous Project Monitoring and Management, is about delivering that proactive detection and resolution of issues, optimizing your resources, improving those project delivery times, shortening that time to revenue, right? So that's accelerating your revenue capture. If you have M&A, if you're trying to prepare for M&A, it streamlines your business and makes you a more lucrative target because you are optimized and efficient. If you're an organization that rolls up businesses, this is about the efficiency cycle of onboarding those businesses, accurately deploying best practices, and ensuring accountability for that integration. And then finally, it is about customer satisfaction. This is a relationship business, right? When we come back and we talk about capturing the margin sort of at a top level, like, hey, what's the ROI of doing this? The first thing is getting that optimized efficiency of your engineers in the white space. So when you know that you think someone's going to a project site on Wednesday, they actually are. So many organizations go, well, they were booked for Wednesday, but it turns out, oh, we're not ready for it. We didn't know that. And now they're sitting on the bench for a full day when they could have been billable, right? So bumping that up from 70 to 78%, if it was a 50-person shop, that's over $1.5 million in revenue. Increasing the project management span of control, we've had a lot of customers go 35 to 60% increase around that span of control, right? And so once again, you're talking about significant reduction of expense to manage those projects. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, like I said, it's a relationship business, right? It is about improving those CSAT scores with transparent, accurate communication to the customers, managing those expectations. As we said, you're going to have problems on your projects, and it's inevitable. But how you communicate, how you manage, how you instill confidence to your customers around that is critical. Each lost customer through a failed execution, and we've had a lot of people come to us because they went, I'm tired of losing customers through poor project management, right? You're losing 40 to 100K a year in revenue because expectations weren't managed. Each customer gained through a great referral is, on the positive side, is 40 to 100,000 or more, depending on the size and the scale of that customer, right? So it is about improving that confidence, that clarity, and that execution with your customers in that process to help your business. So that's an overall view of the concept of APMM, and once again, how bad project data ends up contaminating and causing problems in your business. As we mentioned previously, we'll have Louis Bagdonas is going to jump in and give a live demo. For those of you who can't stick around, if you want to scan the QR code and book a demo, you can do that as well. But I wanted to take a moment to answer a couple of questions before I turned it over to Louis to demonstrate some of the things I've talked about.
Yeah, I'm actually going to bring Louis on because there are a couple of questions that I think he may be able to answer as well. But thank you so much, Mike. And for those who did join late, we will also be sending out the recording for this. Hopefully by next Tuesday, it'll come from my email, which is kate@moovila.com. So you can watch for that as well. Let me get into the Q&A panel. So the first question we have, Mike, this is definitely for you. How do you track historical data for performance with a system like APMM?
Yeah, so structurally and within our platform, we have templates in a process. And so the work that you're managing, so I guess I'll say two things. One, all of the data has historically tracked for performance, A. B, if you want to look at what we'll call template performance, where you have repeatable processes, that data is tracked historically as well, so you can see variance from your estimates, right? And that ties into financial data as well, right? When you can look at the financial performance, whether you're making or losing money on those particular projects, but it can look at variance from work estimates to the actual work estimates to the time that you spent, and looks at the costs associated with those resources. In many cases, organizations will budget for a certain category of engineer to work on something, and then through their process of assigning works, a much more expensive resource ends up picking that work, and the cost goes up significantly for that project based on the resource you're using. So having that template analytics and that performance from both the project's viewpoint and from the template's viewpoint.
Perfect. Thank you. Also going into data, this is a little bit more specific. Are the financials automated as well? Like the financial specific data, can that be automated?
Yeah, so in the Moovila platform, and this is not traditionally part of APMM, Autonomous Project Monitoring and Management, Moovila has something called intelligent budget control. And so we do actually automate as the project goes and lives any changes that occur and kind of do the same sort of alerts financially to let people know, hey, this is now out of budget scope, you're exceeding your cost, the work estimate's higher than you'd picked, you're using a resource that's more expensive, do you want to recast this budget? So we do, on the financial side, automatically track and monitor that financially, although that's not traditionally part of that APMM structure. This is sort of like applying it into, we've chosen to apply that into the financial realm as well.
Makes sense. This next one, Lewis, I think might be best for you because I know you spend lots and lots of hours with MSPs, working them through the program and how to like set it up.
Sure.
How are their scheduled events when they're using those at their MSP, or if they are, how are those factored into capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know traditionally with MSPs, they've had to make do with the PM tools that they've had available to them within the PSAs. And, a lot of people, what we've found they might have a hard time setting the start and due date on those tickets, right? Because as Mike said, once that project kicks off, things change. As things change, they then have to go through all those tickets and change those. And of course, we'll demo, how we can help solve that problem. So a lot of people in the industry, we find, they live and die by what's that next scheduled activity or that next scheduled event within their PSA. So one of the big changes that we've made to our platform is actually looking to see where time is scheduled on individuals' calendars for all of those project tickets, and then taking those calculations into consideration within our resource capacity analysis area, but also doing the work and doing the math in the back end for MSPs to say, okay, you've had 10 hours budgeted for this ticket, you've scheduled 6, you've got 4 hours remaining, right? Let's go ahead and virtualize that work for you as well there too, right? So we've changed the way that we're looking at all of those scheduled items to be able to help provide what we're calling near-term resourcing and scheduling for MSPs. So helping people really dial in what does their capacity look like for this week and next week and the week after. As people are out sick and on PTO, I can't assign this ticket to this person because they're going to be out. Being able to give that view and ease to move things around for people and around that resource requirement more in that business insight level for folks.
Well, and to dovetail on that a little bit too, as far as that scheduling question, another really important point that does dovetail into APMM is as those project timelines get autonomously updated, alerting the user that these scheduled events that previously existed no longer make sense, right? That they can't show up to the customer site, or they can't go in and install that firewall because there were predecessor items that weren't completed. And so I get it. We scheduled it for next Wednesday from 10 to 2, but that can't happen anymore. It's still on the books from 10 to 2. The engineer's calendar still says 10 to 2. That's got to be updated. So identifying those things and automating that update, so it's not a hunt and peck kind of thing where, hey, are all these scheduled? Do these still make sense? Do these still work? So you can have confidence in those scheduled events.
Yep. Well, and I'll make sure to run through all that and show how we can do that as well too.
The confidence is like a huge thing. I saw a thread in, I think it was our MSP for people who are Redditors out there. You can find us in there sometimes, but it was very interesting about like that forecasting and like confidence in it. And a lot of them that like forecast to have a break around Christmas are finding out they aren't getting it because they didn't realize all these different like project parts are backed up, which is just like, with a tool like this, it makes it so much easier to kind of see that way in advance. So if that's a problem you guys are having, definitely stick around for Lewis's presentation. The last one that came in, it looks like, is a follow-up to that one, kind of. So I don't know, Lewis, if you want to continue with it, or Mike, if you want to take it. But if the resources are scheduled in your PSA specifically, so like in ConnectWise, PSA/manage, or Halo or elsewhere, does that sync over to Moovila?
Yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. Of course, right? We've got to be able to give that full picture for the project manager, for the leadership, right? If resources and engineers are still running their day-to-day out of their PSA, and because we want to have individuals work within one platform if they're scheduling themselves on certain tickets, absolutely. We'll flow that information back into our platform so that we can provide that full picture of the resource requirements and what individuals' capacity looks like.
Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. And we are at the bottom of the hour. So thank you guys so much for joining. If you'd love to stay on, Lewis will be hopping into a live demo of Perfect Project specifically for MSPs. He's going to walk through our ConnectWise specific integration. But obviously the integration would be similar with other PSA tools. So we will kind of hop off again so you can just focus on him and the product. But if you do have other questions, you can enter them in the Q&A chat, and Mike can answer them kind of while Lewis is demoing, and we can also answer more questions at the end. So take it away, Lewis.
Sure. All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Kate. I will share my screen. They told me that I had a full 30 minutes here, so I thought we could try to get pretty in depth. So the use case that I want to talk about that we see quite often, right, is an MSP. They get a new customer. Sales come to them and they say, hey, we've got a new customer. We're of course going to run their onboarding project through the PMO, right? We're going to have that checklist that we run for customer onboardings, but we also realize that, hey, they need a lot of upgrades to their network, to their switches, firewalls, all those good things, to be able to get them up to the level where we can actually manage their IT and their services remotely. So I'm going to show the flow a couple different ways, because we have MSPs that work a number of different ways, and we give the flexibility within Moovila to be able to have the creation of that project within Moovila, push it over to your PSA, or as we run our opportunities through the opportunity management, whether we have HubSpot that then feeds into ConnectWise, that then pushes back to CPQ to build out those quotes, to then push into opportunities, right? We can, as Mike said, we can have the visibility to those opportunities earlier on, push them here into Moovila, and then still create that project within the PSA. So we've got any hardware licenses associated with the product, products associated with the opportunity or the project, and then we can pull that into Moovila. So I'm going to start with that first instance. So we've got a new client. Now, cart before the horse here, right? We probably need to upgrade their network before we can onboard them, but we need to onboard them so we can start billing them for that monthly recurring revenue. So they're set up as a customer, so we can bill them for this fixed fee project that sales has quoted out to them. So I'm going to start over here in ConnectWise. And as Kate mentioned, auto task, Halo, other PSAs, same sort of process flow. But essentially, I'm in my opportunity management area here. I've got Loophole Industries, one of my customers. They're wildly successful financially. They haven't been tracked down by the SEC yet. I'm sure they will soon enough. But they're acquiring a new company. And what we're going to look at is we are going to have to onboard that new company, right? And we are then going to upgrade their network. So if I look in here, I've got a couple of opportunities within ConnectWise. I can see I have my new customer onboarding product associated with this opportunity, right? We budget that typically takes 100 hours. We don't charge the customer for that. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this over into a project in Manage. We're going to convert it to a new project. Let's go ahead. We'll bring that product over as well too. Now, as things typically go, Loophole's an existing customer. They're making this acquisition. They let you know about it. Today's Friday, the 8th. It's closing tomorrow on the 9th. we've got to onboard them right away. So we need to start this project on the 11th. Let's go ahead and throw it onto my 213 board, and we will finish. So we've got the project. All that information has come over from the opportunity here. I can look at my work plan and I can see that. Go. So I'm going to see, we'll give it a second here, but we'll see on that work plan that we're going to have one phase with that one product associated with it. Now I'll come over here into Moovila, and let's go ahead and bring this project in, right? So we've created that shell in ConnectWise or our PSA. We have any of the agreements for that new customer associated with it, any products, licenses, hardware, all that fun stuff. I'm going to import this project. And there it is, right? 0751 onboarding for Loops M&A. I'm going to go ahead and import that in from CW. So again, we understand single pane of glass, right? ConnectWise or the PSA is your central source of truth, right? That's where all your agreements live. Billing happens, right? So we make sure that we're flexible. We work with all these systems, native integration, right? We're tied into the APIs here. So I've got this project here. I'm going to follow my internal process. I'm going to go ahead and set the program on this and say, hey, I need to put this into triage because I need to schedule the resources out on this. I'm going to go ahead and apply my no charge rate schedule. Onboarding, we don't charge customers. I've got that customer there associated with it. I'll go ahead and save that. We can see that phase, that ticket that's been brought over from ConnectWise is here within Moovila. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that out so I can reference those 100 hours, but I don't want to take that into account because it doesn't have a lot of details. Now, within our platform, and Mike talked about APMM and all the tools that are needed within a project to be able to build out a timeline and a critical path, right? We can incorporate all of that information into all of your templates within Moovila. So here I have my new client onboarding template. I have all of my phases from information gathering, stakeholder updates, RMM setup, additional setup, PSA setup, closure, right? I have all my durations, my work estimates associated with each of these pieces of work or tickets within my work plan. I can assign what type of resource type I need for each of these, whether it's a project engineer, project manager, account manager, client, solutions architect. I also can define what skills are required, right? So if I come down here to my PSA setup, I want to make sure that I have a project engineer that's advanced in ConnectWise, because that's where I'm running this out of. Any cost codes or billing milestones that I want to associate with this within this template, I can do that ahead of time. So every time I spin this template into a project, all that information is already there. It's going to roll up into my dashboards for me so I can see potentially across my entire portfolio of new customers and onboardings, when am I going to be able to actually start billing for that monthly recurring revenue, right? Maybe I throw out a milestone amount. What's the typical amount that we're going to charge per month on this customer? Now, if I come over into our critical path view here in Moovila, I can look and see that I've built out my plan and all of my dependencies between all of these tickets, right? I know that once I confirm and execute that SLA, then I'm going to be able to move on to review existing documentation. And with that, we can forecast a critical path duration on this project of 33 days, right? So new customer onboarding, 33 days. Now, Mike had mentioned that, by having that good project data, right? Customer success and customer communication, right? This is a relationship business. If we can have a structured plan like this as our first interaction for a new customer with our operations team within our organization, it's going to go tenfold, right? They're going to come on and they're going to say, yeah, I signed with the right guys. I'm excited to be here. They've got their stuff together. They're going to tell me exactly how things are going to go. We can show them this critical path and all the information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this template and I am going to copy it. I'm going to copy all that information that we have, durations and work estimates, and I'm going to drop it into this onboarding project that we synced over from ConnectWise. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this template. Again, one thing I'm seeing here that I forgot to mention, any tasks or steps or checklist items within a ticket, we'll sync all of that information as well too. So you don't have to worry about every time you open that up, oh, what are the steps I need to run through to be able to get this ticket done? All of that information is here and ready to go. So again, I've got this project here in my triage program. Now I can come and look and we can see there is all that information. One important thing to call out on this is I don't have any start and due dates on any of these tickets, right? And with APMM and the technology and AI that's going to monitor and look at that plan and see the critical path duration, I can come over here, right? We still have that full plan. We know it's going to take us 33 days. We've got that default due date that PSAs typically set as 30 days out from the start date of the project. We can see that, hey, this is actually forecasted to 112. Again, first interaction with the customer. Hey, customer, if we're going to kick this off on Monday, because sales said that we could, we're going to get it done, right? This typically takes us about 33 days. I think to be safe, we should all align towards maybe a 115 due date, right? Everybody's on the call. They have this visual. They can see it. We're all aligned to that, and we can set that due date. Now that we've agreed to that due date, we can come into here and just with a couple of clicks, because we've done that work in that front end in our templates to build durations work estimates, we can go ahead and update the start and due dates for every single one of those tasks or tickets within this plan. Now let's jump back over to our PSA and let's throw a quick refresh here on this project. Oh, let me come back in and make sure those estimates are in there. So I can look at my work plan here, all of those phases, all of those tickets, all of the budgeted hours that we've built out ahead of time are being brought over into our PSA, and we have the estimated start and due dates now automatically on every single one of those tickets. So just with a couple of clicks, right? Next step through my process, now that I know when that work has to be completed, then I can start to leverage tools like our resource wizard to find who's going to be the best option. Now, I mentioned earlier within our PSA setup, we've got a project engineer and we want them advanced in ConnectWise. So I can come in here and I can look and see across all of my users, right? I need to find somebody that's a project engineer. I need to make sure that they have an advanced ConnectWise skill. And then I'm going to need 6 hours of work from this individual on 12/21 to 12/23. What we're going to do here in our resource wizard is we're going to try to find the best match for this ticket. So we've got Amy, she's project engineer, she's advanced ConnectWise. She's at 127% capacity over this time period, right? Maybe we want to burn Amy out before Christmas. Probably not the best idea. She's one of our better engineers. We also know she's really looking forward to Christmas this year. Maybe we see John here is at 102%, right? So giving you the tools to be able to evaluate who's going to be the best option for each piece of work. Now, I'm going to come back to the top here, and I'm going to start to assign a project manager. Bob, he's over capacity. He's my workhorse, but this is a big project, important, high dollar value. We want to make sure we give it to Bob here. So I know some of those questions earlier, Kate, were around scheduled events. So I want to make sure that we show that, right? So in theory, we'd come through here, we would update all of our owners for all these tickets. I assign this work, making it easy to say, yeah, we're going to keep Bob here. Let's just copy and paste and put Bob on all of these. Save it through. Now, I can come in here and I can say, all right, Bob, you're gonna start reviewing this as existing documentation next Tuesday. I can come in here to Bob. I'm gonna go ahead and schedule Bob on 12/12, and let's say, Bob, I want you to work from 9 to 11 on this. Maybe we'll try to get a little bit ahead, right? Again, this is part of what we see in the industry. What are people's processes? How far out do they schedule Is it 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Things that are critical, and customers said, hey, we need somebody on site this day. Let's go ahead and lock that in the future. Let's go ahead and put Bob here on next Thursday, I believe that is, for a couple more hours. All right. Again, this is important. Bob, I want you to start your day with this every day. And then Friday, we need you another 2 hours from you here, Bob. So let's throw Bob. 12:15, again, beginning of the day. So let's save that through. So we're using that critical path engine and that autonomous project monitoring and management to forecast out all those dates on this project, right? And then with that, we can leverage, hey, let's schedule these. Now let's come over into Bob's calendar for next week, and we can see that all of that information that we put in and we've scheduled Bob, that's now on his calendar, right? So Bob can come to his calendar. He sees every day, hey, I'm working on this new loophole M&A onboarding. Now, this is triage, right? We're setting the project up. We're ready to go. We live in the real world. Customer comes back and says, hey, we realized all of our team is out next week and then all the way through Christmas, right? There's no way we're going to be able to start this onboarding on 12/11. We can come in here. We can say, okay, I understand, no problem. Let's go ahead and move this to January the 2nd, right? We'll leave that due date of 1/15 right now, even though we know that it's probably going to be pretty hard to hit. This is when we come over to our critical path, and we can see that with just the simple change of that start date on that project, we're now going to reforecast the start and due date of every single ticket within this project. So we're going to say, hey, the current start on this is 12/11. That is illogical. This project isn't starting until 1/2. And with that, we're now not going to forecast to complete it until 2/3, right? So based on that original due date of 1/15, we have a 20-day delay here. Again, customer communication, customer relationship. We've got the tools and an easy visual here to show them by moving that, what it does to the project. So I'm going to come in here. Customer's going to say, yep, we understand this is on us, because all customers are understanding like that, right? And we're going to say, okay, 2/3 is a Saturday. Let's say we'll agree to the 9th, give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. And then again, with just a couple clicks here, I can then update the start and due dates of all these tickets. We want to come back into our PSA. We can see real quick, we're recasting and updating all of those dates on all those tickets here within that platform. Now, as Mike mentioned, also providing the visual and the view to say, okay, I've scheduled the work. The plan's now changed. Where am I at? What can I actually work on? What can I do? Right? So I've put all this time on Bob's calendar for next week, and I'm going to say, hey, now all of these scheduled events that we put on Bob's calendar for next week, these are out of sync. They're invalid. Based on this new start and due date of this project, which then recasted the start and due dates of all the tickets, Bob can't start working on this next week. It doesn't make sense, right? We need to push this out to 1/3. Also within our tool, right, this is very handy within one project. We know that MSPs are running hundreds of projects at one time, right? You need to see, as PMs are shifting dates on projects and as things are changed and this is late and this is early and we're pulling things forward, what's been scheduled, right? We don't want to send Bob on site for a kickoff meeting and nobody's going to expect him to be there and he's going to show up and now we've burned half of Bob's day. So within our platform, we also can look for any of these scheduled events that are illogical as risks as well too. So we can say, hey, show me any scheduled events this week, here's what I'm looking for, that are late. So we can say, hey, Amy, you were scheduled on this. You got to get your work done. Did you do it? Also, that invalid, out of sync, we can say, hey, anything that doesn't make sense this week, where is it? Now, if I want to come in here and change this filter real quick and say, show me next week, right? Now we can see some of that work there that we put on Bob's calendar for next week is going to show up here. So we know, not just on that one project, but across our portfolio, we need to go in and we need to update some of our schedules, and we need to make sure that everything's in line here, because we are leveraging, APMM and the tools that can increase efficiency and help us run these projects and improve our margin. So I know a lot to unpack there, showed a number of things. I haven't seen any questions come through, Kate. I'll continue to try to monitor those as they do, and I'm more than happy to jump around here within the platform. So real quick, we just recap, we showed creating that project within the PSA, bringing it over into Moovila, and then applying that template with all that information and that work plan that we've built out. So I want to show the reverse as well, right? So that's a customer onboarding, pretty cut and dry, straightforward. It's a standard service or a standard product or bundle that we run day in and day out. We know that template is going to run like clockwork every time. Now, again, in this example, Loop is acquiring a new company that we need to upgrade their network. So we know that networks can be complicated, right? Depending on the number of locations, the number of firewalls, the number of endpoints, the number of users, servers, a number of different complicated factors that go into a project like that, right? So we see a number of our customers and MSPs, if we have the tools here to build a detailed and intricate work plan, then why not use them? So if I come in here to triage, we can see that for Loop M&A onboarding, that project's still in there, so we're good to go. Now, I have another project here for those network upgrades, right? And this is an existing project that is in Moovila, and I've pushed over to ConnectWise. We can see if we look at that work plan, we have all those details here. This is a big project with a discovery, planning, execution phase that has additional discovery. It's got switches, firewalls, a lot to it, right? Then we've got a closing phase here as well. So if I come back into Moovila, let's filter by favorites. So again, we have all that information here in Moovila. If I come and look at the critical path, we can see, hey, this is a big project. There's a lot going on here, right? Again, same concept though. We're forecasting all of those dates based on the structure that we've built. So again, we're onboarding that customer, and then we're going to do the network upgrades. Because we've changed the start date of that other project, we want to be able to tie these two projects together. So within our platform, we also have inter-project dependencies. So I can come in here and say, this network upgrades project can't start until my onboarding project is complete. So within the closure phase, once that user training is done, that is when I'm going to be able to start this new project to upgrade their network, right? I can see that if I apply that inter-project dependency, again, we're recasting all these dates. If I look at this project, I cannot start my scope review on this now until 2/2. And I'm going to forecast that now to the end of May, right? This is a big project. We've used the tool to build out all those dependencies. So I could come in here, again, we've got the tool to review it with the customer. Let's go ahead and say, yep, we all agree. We'll start that due date. That start date is as 2/2. We all agree to the close date on this, just to be safe, let's say end of May, give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room, knowing that we're sure things are going to pop up. And then with a couple of clicks here, we can update and push all of those dates, start and due dates, to all of these tickets within this massive, intricate project that has a lot going on here, right? And now if I jump back into my PSA system here, we can come into our work plan, and we can see that we'll start to get some start and due dates on this populated. I might have changed my names here a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah, we've got a date issue on here for some reason. So let's change that real quick. Push a sync on that. This is where I got maybe a little too excited that they were going to give me 30 minutes to demo, trying to get intricate with it. So, within the platform, right, we've reforecasted all those dates. I know another one of the questions that was asked about intelligent budget control, right? So, of course, using the tools, we've built out every single one of these steps within this project of, hey, how many hours is it going to take to configure that new hardware in the portal? We need to test and verify configuration on our switches up here, and then we need to configure 10. We've got 25 hours, all that detailed work you've done to build out that work plan. So if we come into our intelligent budget control here within Moovila, we're going to roll all of that information up for you. So, MSPs, we're typically seeing that they budget by the resource type required. So we're going to say, hey, for this project, we need 43 hours of project management time. We've got 219 hours of engineering time, and we've got a couple hours for an account manager. Again, as say things start to change, right? We've set our budget on this. If somebody comes in and updates some of those work estimates or budgeted hours, we're going to throw a flag on that intelligent budget control here and say, hey, you'd set your budget for a project engineer at 214 hours. You have an unallocated quantity here of 5 hours. Do you want to increase this budget? Or is this something that we need to continue to track against and call out as the life cycle of the project goes on? So making that budgeting easier, making that timeline easier. I think the other question was also on historical analysis of data as well too. So let me jump into another onboarding. Yeah, this onboarding project. So we also have, right, if we want to come and look at a quick summary on this project, right, we can show you, hey, we've finished 20 out of 36 tickets. We're about 55% done. We've got, here's what's due in the next 5 days. We've set that budget on this project as well too. So we can quickly see, we budgeted by resource type. We've got a budget of 56 hours of a project engineer on this project. We've got 10 for PM and 6.5 for an account manager. I can see, hey, I'm 3 hours over my PM time, right? What's going on? I'm 2.5 hours over for my account manager. It's also another good tool. If we look at a budget review on this project as well, right? We typically don't charge for our onboardings, but they cost money, right? They still take time from our team. We understand that. Maybe we build that into our recurring cost for that customer, but we can say, hey, we estimated it was going to cost us about $8,500 with all the hours. What's it actually been costing, right? This would be a quick, easy red flag for me to say, all right, I'm $9,400 in on this onboarding. I budgeted at 85. I've only finished 50% of the tickets required. I'm gonna be going over, right? So looking at it on an individual project level, but then also looking at this information across our portfolio as well to say, hey, here's how long onboardings are typically taking us. We got to make sure that as sales is building this in, they're accounting for this within whatever the recurring cost is per month. So I know I covered a lot, creation within Moovila, creation within the PSA, a lot of different options, right? But essentially giving the tools to be able to effectively, manage your projects and manage your professional services business, keep that data clean, keep it efficient so you can manage growth, manage business, acquisitions, all the fun stuff. So any questions or any additional features that y'all want to see, we can do it here today, or I'm always available.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions that came in, so I'm going to turn it over to Mike just for last comments. Thank you so much, Lewis. If you guys do have questions, you can email. The team had their emails at the beginning, but you can email me, kate@moovila.com, and I'll make sure they get to the right person and get included in. Or you can find any of us on LinkedIn. We all have pretty unique last names, so we're easier to find. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you for the conclusion.
Thanks so much, Kate. And thanks again, Louis, for going over the platform and that process and the integrations. So overall, the concept here is around automation. And it's so important to have that data automated, right? So you're living in your PSA, you've got that information, that data, but automating the structure of that work for the capacity, the resource, to trust and know that you've got accurate financial data, accurate scheduling data, and communicating. It's so essential to your business, and your business is so dependent on that data to be accurate so you can forecast accurately, determine profitability, determine resources, and once again, most effectively, communicate accurately to your customers to maintain that sense of integrity in your data, your reputation, and your ability to deliver. Thanks again, everybody, for taking the time today. If you're here live on Friday or whenever you're listening to it in the future, we really appreciate it. And once again, happy to answer any questions you have. It's easy to find us at Moovila.com. Thanks again.